Sidas representant, välkommen upp på scen, Susanna Ahlfors som är kommunikatör, som ska prata på vårt nästa tema tillsammans med, nu ska vi se, Olena Shevchenko som är från Ukraina och jobbar med HBTQ-aktivism. Och jag lämnar golvet till er. Ta gärna micken nära hakan.
Tack. And I'm going to switch language now to English and give a very warm welcome to you, Olena Shevchenko. Welcome all of you here today. The human right to actually love whoever you want to love and to be whoever you want to be, that should of course be universal. But in many countries in the world, more than 70 actually, it's illegal to be homosexual or to talk about homosexuality in a positive way. And even in countries where homosexuality is not a crime, it can be very hard to live openly as a lesbian, gay, transsexual person. You're discriminated or threatened. And how do you handle that as a person? And why do you engage in it? And what is it like? That's what we're going to talk to you about today, Olena Shevchenko. You're a human rights defender, co-founder or the head of the HBTQ-organisation Insight. Very warm welcome to Sweden. And I'm Susanna Ahlfors, and I work as a communicator at the Swedish International Development Corporation agency, Sida. Olena, you call yourself a feminist, fighting for women's rights and the rights of lesbian, transsexual people in Ukraine. And you were previously involved in a feminist lesbian organization. I would like to ask you a bit, the struggle for women's rights and the rights for homosexual, why is that interlinked? Can you explain to us a bit?
Thank you so much for inviting me. That's the first thing. And another thing is thank you for switching into English. I'm just trying, to catch something in Swedish now during the whole morning. And I guess it will be more successful maybe tomorrow for me, just to get used to it. So, yeah, thank you for your question. For me, it's kind of naturally to be a feminist activist and to fight for women's rights in Ukraine. And it's really interlinked with the LGBT struggle. But I know that for many people in my country, in Ukraine, it's not obvious why it's so interconnected. We call it intersectional approach. Like intersectionality is the way how we perceive our rights, how we understand our rights, and how we work and see our identities. So for me, first of all, I feel myself as a woman. And I know that in our patriarchal society, I'm so much oppressed. And, if we will see our society on different levels and see our privileges on different levels, for instance, as a white person or a non-white person, as a woman or as a man, or as a Ukrainian in Ukraine or other nationality, you will see those privileges and how they actually work. So first of all, I understand that many times I was discriminated as a woman in Ukraine. And another thing, of course, my identity as a homosexual woman, and I prefer to call myself lesbian because this word should be, more vocalized in our communities, because many times I heard something that lesbian is a dirty word, but it's not. So we need to use it more. So as a woman and lesbian, I'm twice oppressed in my country, in Ukraine, but I also have different other identities. And in my opinion, the core discrimination is on the gender level, because we all came from patriarchal societies. And I know, and I'm sure that it's a myth that somewhere matriarchat existed. It's not true. So in terms of patriarchal society, the first thing we need to understand is the gender oppression. And then it works like black and white, because men are strong and women are weak, and homosexual are wrong, and heterosexual is a norm. So this is a black and white society, and we need to deconstruct this whole idea of black and white, good and bad, and strong and weak.
But why do you think that you as a lesbian woman is perceived as a threat to men? Because you said that to me.
Yeah, of course. So on the different levels, then we will see how the patriarchal society trying to reconstruct and, you know, rebuild itself. You will see that it's all based on different privileges. So basically the main threat for this male masculine domination is the way then women become stronger. So basically, this patriarchal society mainly see lesbians as a strong woman who can do something with that, you know, natural order.
So men feel challenged by lesbian women because they don't want to stick to the traditional gender role. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes, because traditional gender roles saying that women should be at home, at kitchen, and in church. That's like 3 ways of being a natural or traditional woman.
In Ukraine, it's not a crime to be homosexual. And I read that the parliament has even passed a law against discrimination at work on sexual orientation and gender identity. So legally, it's okay. But at the same time, several politicians have actually proposed suppressing freedom of speech for LGBT people by the so-called propaganda, anti-propaganda laws that we see in Russia. And according to a European poll made last year, only half of the population in Ukraine think that gay and bisexual individuals should enjoy equal rights. To a Swedish audience here, how would you describe the situation for lesbian, gay, transsexual people in Ukraine today?
Well, it's kind of hard task to describe it in a few words, but let's say let's stick to those 2 things, like legislative level. It's then some legislation pass anti-discrimination law, labor code, anti-violence laws, and then also we have a social situation. So basically the social attitude, how the politician talks about LGBT rights, how other social groups, you know, attitudes towards each other, and so on. So basically in Ukraine we have only 1 mentioning of LGBT, and to be specific, sexual orientation and gender identity, it's in labor code. We even don't have it in the basic anti-discrimination law. So what does it mean? We have a joke in Ukraine that you can enjoy your rights only by working as LGBT person, but nothing else. So
so if you're, for example, hit on the street because you're homosexual, that wouldn't be described as a hate crime?
That's the problem, because yes, we don't have this special hate crime law, and all those articles we have in criminal codes, they talking about other features, not sexual orientation and gender identity. So this is our next struggle, to fight for hate crime legislation in Ukraine, because yes, we have so many cases of violence, and not only on the streets, it's also at homes, it's also from parents, it's also from friends, and it's also from police. But in the best case, they can be registered as a hooliganism, so basic hooliganism without any motive. And this is really core for us, because without that you never will be accepted as a part of the society, because LGBT, it's not the social group in Ukraine still, and all politicians, including president and our prime minister, get used to say something about it's not normal, it's like perverts, it should be prohibited.
Politicians say this? Like,
then the labor code was voted, I mean amendment, to include sexual orientation and gender identity protection. Our prime minister told the publicity and to members of the parliament, let's vote for it, because Euro Parliament, you know, trying to push on us, we need to push this law. But I promise you, it's almost a quote, I promise you that Ukraine is a traditional country, and we will protect our traditional families from those people by establishing a special post as ombudsperson for traditional values.
Can you describe a little bit more, like if you compare to Sweden, the culture, the values, the level of religion, how that differs from Ukraine, and is that the reasons behind only half of the population accepting LGBT rights? Sweden is described as one of the most homo-friendly countries in the world, and in Pride here I happily saw the Prime Minister walking in the streets, so it's also a way to show the support. What is the difference in societies?
Maybe you want to know how the Sweden usually describe in Ukraine from this conservative battle.
Yes.
Usually described as a, you know, the heart of the gay rope. So like Sweden is trying to impose this gay perverts and, you know, go to Ukraine for our children and to hunt on them. But honestly, I just remembered one story of my friend. She's from Norway, and she told me then she grew up, and we are the same age. Her mother and father told her, like, you know, you can be heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, or whatever. So it wasn't the problem for her from the beginning. And for us in Ukraine, it's not even a problem. It's a battle. It's everyday battle, because if you're coming out as a LGBT person, you need to understand that you will fight every day of your life, every hour, because you're not sure what will happen to you. And you don't have rights, you know, to have a family, to have a children, to even talk about yourself openly. So we're still fighting for that right. And here in Sweden, she said that it was, you know, even not a choice. It was so naturally for her. And I'm not talking about to be strong or weak woman. It's like on the base level.
Can you just give some examples? You say you have to fight. What is the fighting that you would sort of have to do every day after coming out as a homosexual?
So, for instance, if you're looking not in traditional way, like not traditionally too feminine, so you should be ready that each day going through public transport or going to some public place or even going through the street, you can't be offended or you can be a subject of violence. Or if I will go with my girlfriend to some public place, you can't be relaxed, because you don't know what will happen next. And it's now I'm talking about Kiev, is a central city, it's the capital. And what is happening in small regions?
So you wouldn't give a kiss to your girlfriend in public?
Oh, well, it's problematic. Yes, I can do it because, you know, I'm openly lesbian in Ukraine and I'm like got used to it, but it's not safe place.
I just wanted to touch on the title of this seminar, because that's something that struck me when I was talking to you the first times. We have the right not to see people like you. It comes from a quote that the representative of the state ombudsman actually said to you when talking about your rights and human rights. Can you very quickly describe that? Because I think that's giving a very descriptive image of what you meet.
I would say that it's general perception about human rights, like how people in Ukraine understand the concept. So basically, mainly people just don't get the sense of the human rights. And they think that like the human rights, it's for myself, it's about my rights. And how I usually hear on different public events, they said like, I have a right to not see you, you know, in the public sphere. So do everything you want to do on the closed doors, but don't go to the public spheres. That's like they perceive the human rights in general.
Like
and
don't ask, don't tell. Be gay, but stay in your closet.
Yeah, but even if you are staying in your closet, in your apartment, you need to understand that it's not possible. And that's my answer to those people, that imagine your everyday life, how many time you spend on the closed doors.
I was going to go back to one specific incident. During a women's march, International Women's Day 8 March this year, you were having a march and you were attacked by extreme right-wing groups who you describe as a big threat in Ukraine. They threw paint at you, they threatened you with violence in the street. But the person detained by the police that wasn't the alt-right groups. It was actually you. And you were alleged with violation of order to conduct public demonstrations. More specifically, you violated the national symbols of your banner. This just sounds absolutely incredible. Can you tell a little about this incident?
This is kind of complicated situation, really interconnected with the rising of ultranationalism in Ukraine after Russia started the war on the eastern part of Ukraine. So basically, yes, it's really hard because now I have to show you the connection between state and those ultra-right groups. So basically, yes, then we tried to realize our right to public assembly, peaceful assembly, on the 8th of March. It's a feminist demonstration. We were attacked by ultra-right groups, and then I was arrested by the police, so by the state, because ultra-rights told them that on one of our banner they saw the violation of national symbols of Ukraine. And it was a banner showing the violence against women, showing the rope, like the physical violence, also the charge, the violence from the church, and then also the money, and then also this symbol of ultranationalist, which is a bit similar to small herb of Ukraine. And yeah, it was a court case. Then I was blocked in the court twice by those ultra-rights.
You had to be taken out back door from the court.
And yeah, this is amazing, honestly, because then then you are coming to the court. I came there voluntarily because I was sure that I'm right, and then I was blocked by the groups of nationalism, and the police evacuated me from the court building. Yeah. But we won. We won. Yeah.
Just want to quote Amnesty International's Ukraine director, Oksana Pokalchuk, said, by prosecuting Olena Shevchenko, the Ukrainian authorities have underscored just how far they are willing to add fuel to the far-right groups whose threats and violence ruined International Women's Day's protests across the countries. So it's very strong. And Sweden, through the Sida, who I represent, support your organization inside through RFSL in Sweden. I'd like to ask you, what does this support mean to you as an organization, and also the support from Sweden from a political point of view?
Well, it means a lot. Like a lot means the support from different European countries and Europe to Ukraine in reforms. It's not a simple process, it's not an easy process, but for civil society, for our organization, on different levels of resources, it's really crucial support. Because without that, we won't have access, for instance, to international instruments for advocacy, for pushing for legislation changes, and also even just to push our politicians to sit together with us somewhere in another country and to hear us. Because without that, we still don't have such a culture. Then the state representative think that they are on the same level with you. They think they are much, higher in hierarchy.
Do you think there's ever other ways that European countries, Sweden and others, can do to support you and sort of to maybe put pressure on to have a change in countries with more traditional family-oriented values?
Well, I would say that to keep going, to be a champion in a gender equality and other issues. But it's also complicated, because we see different processes in Europe, this anti-migration things and rising of ultra-rights as well. And I just can say that our ultra-rights is really happy about the last elections in Sweden. And I just try and, to push you to for the further work, like don't stop, because it's always step forward and step back, unfortunately. So I don't think we will ever reach this goal in fighting for human rights, then we can't stop. It's not that the process which can be stopped. It's ongoing process.
Yeah, this right-wing movement, that's unfortunately a wind we see blowing through a lot of Europe. I think we have only 1 minute left, and I would just like to ask you one last question, if you can do it briefly, like the work you do in Ukraine as a feminist, lesbian, how do you think, is it more differing that to being a feminist standing up for the same cause in Sweden? Do we have more in common, or what is it specifically that you need to fight, that we need to understand?
I think the issues are common. So basically, it's about solidarity. And I would stop here because solidarity, it's something, we all understand what it's all about, but we need to put new sense in this word in the next years.
Thank you very much, Olena Shevchenko. And Olena is here inviting from Ukraine for 2 days. So if you're here and you want to have a chance to talk a little more to her, ask her questions, please come over to our stand, the booth here at Sida, just behind that wall. Thank you very much.